All right. Welcome everybody to our second Thursday of the month, Arts and Craftsmen Guild on the Roycroft campus. We're really excited to have Matt Palmo talk with us tonight, talk about his own work, talk about his not-for-profit. Part of our meeting will be here. Matt will speak for a while, and then he actually has a studio on campus. So we'll then walk over there. It's just right across, right on next to the copper shop over
10 seconds away. So yeah,
All right.
yeah.
So well, I'm going to let you speak from here, Matt.
Okay, thank you, Robin. I don't know if I've ever been mic'd before. Is this, can you guys hear me? Am I good? Okay. Well, first of all, I just want to, my name is Matthew Palmo. I'm a Buffalo-based artist. I'm also the founder of Indicator Art, which is a nonprofit where we teach individuals with developmental disabilities the artistic process. And it's kind of an interesting story how these two worlds kind of collided. And you know what, I looked back one time recently, 25 years ago, and I kind of did a little research. And the first time I picked up a brush when I was like 18 or 19 years old was within a month or two of when I first walked into a retirement home where I got my first job in the human service field. So me developing my art, my own art process in a bubble, completely I'm self-taught and I had no influences other than what was inside my parents' garage and, that kind of thing. I was on this parallel journey of, serving marginalized groups of people. I was always in direct care and either working with the elderly population in nursing homes and retirement homes and things like that. And then I later on switched over to working with people with developmental disabilities in group homes and day programs and all different settings. And I did that for 25 years while I was, or 20 years or so while I was, evolving as an artist. And really long story, but I'll just really make it short, is that I didn't like really what I saw in a lot of the environments that I worked. I'm very idealistic. I was the guy that could never, I'm smart enough, I was determined enough, but I could never work my way up the ladder because I couldn't be the man of the company versus the man of the people. And I didn't see, there was a disconnect what you saw on their flyers and what they taught in orientation and what I was actually seeing. I'm very idealistic. Found myself more than one occasion in the CEO's office, saying, what's the problem? There's the door if you don't like it, kind of thing. So I eventually just quit. Asked my wife. It was not a good thing just to quit. I had this idea evolving this whole time to this nonprofit. It was all different things. It eventually became called Indicator Art. I'll get to that point how I got the name, but I thought it would just start right up. It took at least 6 months to get going, so it wasn't pleasant in my household during that time. But yeah, I couldn't deal with it anymore. I saw a better way of working with people, empowering people, and my own specific process, which I developed again in a vacuum. And I'm sure there's influences in places I'm not aware of, but I didn't go to school. I didn't have a mentor or anything. I didn't study art. And that's not a bad thing. I really wish I did, and I still wish I could. And I could, I guess. But the process works really, really well with individuals I teach. And it was kind of like meant to be. So when I first started, I had 3 students, people that I knew very well, and it just was like, wow, this is really working, The next time it was, word of mouth, it just picked up over time. And I eventually moved into the First Presbyterian Church on Main Street. I don't know if anyone's familiar with that building. It's a huge building. Initially, they gave me like the room with the cribs in it. It was a real tiny room, had no space, bad lighting. Then someone said, why don't you use my space upstairs? It's bigger, but I still had to keep lugging all my work up and everything. At the end, I took over an entire wing, renovated the whole thing. We had 4 rooms, a corridor, an elevator that opened right outside our door. It was amazing. We had I had several teachers. We had multiple programs going on at the same time. We did art. We evolved to doing photography. I had a teacher who would take our students out into the community, and they would go all over the place. And I would say, Amanda, why is there a no trespassing sign up in the corner in this photograph? She was taking me in like really wild places to get amazing photos, but the photos were fantastic. We were doing in the community shows. We did over 50 shows in person at coffee shops, libraries, Albright Knox. We were part of shows, you know, really amazing stuff. Students were selling work, really amazing. And we started doing music, things like that. We had a band called Peter and the Pirates. It was a man with Down syndrome who kind of was the lead person, and it was fantastic. So things, all that. We had an opportunity to move to LA, me, my wife, and my son, and we took that opportunity, which kind of cut us off here quite a bit. We kept it going for a few years into COVID. You know, obviously it was hard to keep it going 3,000 miles away during COVID. So we eventually shut that down. In the meantime, though, we launched in Nashville. I had a director for 2.5 years in Nashville. They were doing sketch comedy, songwriting, all with people with developmental disabilities. They did films. That kind of fizzled out during COVID. That was a tough time for us. But what it did for us was, I don't know if anyone knows the prices in LA. I mean, I couldn't afford a studio. I wouldn't even tell you what we paid in rent, but I had a little tiny closet in the back of our garage. I think it was like 6 foot by 3 foot. And I started an online program during COVID, which really took off. We ended up working with students in over 30 states, Canada, Israel, India, Saudi Arabia. So we're all over the world, all from my little, like, I called it my art bunker, from this little tiny room. It was amazing. And at the end, instead of doing an in-person art show like we did in the past, it morphed into an art critique, where I created a panel of professional artists who we would screen share the images, and then the panel would discuss the work. And I had, you know, professional artists from all over the country on these panels, and it really amazing. We've done, you know, 30, 35 of those over the COVID time. We eventually moved home to Buffalo in January, back to my wife's family farm in Strikersville, and I was kind of just lost. This kind of miraculously opened up. I came here and I was told, we could put you on a list, but it's going to be many, many years before something opens up. Ended up wandering back to the antique store, which I don't know if anyone knows is privately owned. And I just made my case. And does everyone know Jan? You know Jan? So Jan told me one time recently that not only did I catch her husband on the right day, but the exact minute to say yes. He's a wonderful man, but it was perfect. So they built me a room there, put in a door for me, and we'll see that in a few minutes. So we started doing in-person classes again. I'm teaching at the Castiglia Art Center, and we had our first set of in-person art critiques recently, and it was fantastic. So that's where, well, I met you before. Where did I meet you, Robin?
I wandered into your studio.
You wandered in my studio, yes. You were sitting like Indian style on the floor, I remember.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, and I was really upset because we just moved and you were really kind to me. I felt like I could tell you everything, you know, so I appreciate that. So it's been really nice. And Robin came to one of our critiques, and I think he really expressed it.
I'm gonna
Go ahead.
interrupt a
Yeah.
little bit. The critiques, they're like, it's like a combination art show for these people. They are so excited, the people who work with Matt. They enjoy hearing from the people who are critiquing. It's a big deal for them. People are always welcome, right?
Oh, I would love people to come. In fact, I'm looking for, if anyone's a painter, looking for a panelist to help us with it. So just keep that in mind. I know everyone does different things here, but some of our successes have been, I was telling you, I work with a little girl in Saudi Arabia who's non-speaking, who has autism, and we were able, through our online critique, able to connect her with a collector in Virginia, and she sold her piece to a collector in Virginia. And it was, I mean, the parents, they were very emotional. It was the first time, apparently, that she was affirmed by people outside her own home. And so it was very emotional and beautiful. You know, so things like that happened. We, last summer in LA, you can't go too far without meeting a filmmaker or an actor. And, you know, I made a friend named Jarrett Sacre. He's an actor. His wife won an Emmy. They're, you know, if you place them in a smaller city, they would be, you know, they're amazing. But, you know, in LA, you know, they're still amazing in LA. So I don't want to say, I'm not trying to say negative or anything, but he was able to come out with his family, and a friend of his who's a professional writer wrote a script for our individuals. We had 7 individuals in this film, and 5 of them live in a group home in East Aurora. And we did an amazing film, 12-minute film, and we just got into 2 film festivals in New York City. And one of them we got honorable mention, and it was not a special, side thing. It was actually part of their film festival. So that was a big thing. So, but I have to outsource those things. I myself am an artist, so I do the artwork part of it. So I can talk about my own work as well, because everything's kind of intertwined. But and that might be better when we're at the go.
Introduce us to your work a little bit.
Okay, yeah.
And also let us know later where we might be able to see the films.
Yeah, so we're still entering film festivals, and apparently my wife is doing that part of it. She has a background in film and casting and everything. But apparently film festivals don't want you to have this public while you're in the jury process. So we're almost through the season. In all truthfulness, we got denied by like 40 of these, but we did get into 2 of them, So, but I at some point I'd love to talk to Alan or someone here about doing just a presentation with a film. What is it called? A screening of it, and actually having the individuals here. Maybe even doing our own like little panel or something. So yeah, it's kind of I don't want to say a dark comedy, but it's really funny. It's really funny. So so this is a painting I did in my art bunker back in California, which was the size of this table. So it was hard to work on a piece like this. But when I paint, I have no preconceived idea of what's going to be on this canvas. I got to choose my words carefully. No problem. Yep. I got to choose my words carefully because I got a review from a local newspaper that quoted me in the opening saying, "I don't know what I'm doing," quote unquote, says Matt Palmo, artist. What I meant by that was I don't know, not that I don't know what I'm doing. I don't have a vision of what it's going to be at first. So this is just a blank canvas. I work on, sometimes when I'm getting ready for a show, I might work on 30 paintings at the same time. And I'm kind of like a madman. I'm just all over the place. I turn it this way and I go this. I never stop. I have friends who are professional artists that will look at a blank canvas and kind of ponder it for 2 weeks and walk around it. And then they do sketches and that's all good. But I've knocked out 30 paintings by that point. I was working with a gallery in LA where I told the representative that I had finished roughly 40 paintings in the last 6 weeks. And she said, "That's impossible." I said, "Well, I did it." So I know it's not impossible. So it's a very, very intense, nonstop activity. Sometimes I'll paint the painting going one way for 5 hours and then flip it upside down and start going and things start happening. Things appear on it, and I just have a really good eye. I'm someone that can see faces in anything. I see creatures in that wall. You know what I mean? I'm like in little clouds is an obvious thing, but so that's there. So my initial stage is it's kind of like abstract expressionism or something, but then I just turn it different ways. I start seeing stuff and things start coming out. And I'm asked what it means a lot. That's a question I get. My wife has told me you need to have an answer for that. But the truth is, I don't know what this means. But doesn't mean that it doesn't have meaning, that I don't exactly know. I kind of put my own meaning into it after the fact. But what I think what's happening is I'm a spiritual person. I'm really sensitive to what's happening in the world. And it kind of comes through me and I kind of vomit it on the, yeah, exactly. It's something, it goes through me and then it ends up on the canvas. So, well, what I see in it a lot is people, when they initially see it, my work, are like, "Wow, this is so joyful. Look how beautiful the colors are." But if you really look at it, it's these beautiful colors with very dark images interacting. And I think it kind of represents kind of the world. There's, beautiful, colorful things happening right next to really awful, terrible things. And they're always interacting. And I feel like happens in my work. So, Any questions or anything I can answer?
So I see like a lot of texture in there.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, do you also do like palette knife work?
I actually don't ever, I rarely use a palette knife.
Really?
This is all acrylic. What I do is I just start, well, okay, so when I do small paintings, I use those as palettes. So I have hundreds of these as palettes. And then I just turn those into paintings. But I just start smearing paint. And I use ripped up pieces of like index card and stuff, and I kind of smear it. And I let it dry, go to something else. Then I come back and I do it again. And so there's layers and layers and layers on here even before images start appearing. Some of my best work were paintings earlier on in my career that I went back in and painted over, left some of it. Sometimes they completely got, I'll show you a painting in there that's this beautiful, beautiful painting that was a centerpiece at a show years ago. It was an atomic bomb. And then it turned into this beautiful scene. So it's kind of interesting how things will change. Anyone else or go ahead. Ray, I know your name. Yeah. So we're working with the individuals I work with. Well, yeah, it was two things. I always look at indicator art as straddling two worlds, the art world and then people. There's a lot of other companies that work with individuals with developmental disabilities with art, but so the people are the most important. One of my things is people are more important than art. So that is, but they're doing work in an abstract, in the world of abstract that can compete with professional abstract artists. And it's because, and I really analyze this, it's because they don't care. They're not worried about being judged. Even though my paintings are crazy, there's been times the night before I brought it to a gallery, I took something out because I was like, I'm afraid they're going to call a psychologist on me. You know what I mean? So like, this is a little too weird even for me. They take it into places they don't know there's even rules to be broken. So they're in this like pure, higher function. The people I work who are a little higher function actually have an image in mind. They struggle a little more in my program because they want it to be something. And the people who just let it go and let's just see what happens, they produce really great paintings. So we are making real sales. One of the next steps we're going to do, hopefully in 2024, is actually start representing artists with developmental disabilities as professionals. So I'm really excited about that. But yeah, we've sold. There's been a lot of paintings that have been sold through our program. One of our last critiques, someone sold his painting for $200. It's amazing, and it's a real sale. I mean, 18 by 24, I'm selling for like 400. He sold it for 200. You know what I mean? It's not bad. So okay, so I don't know where I am in my career. I wouldn't say I'm emerging. I'm beyond that. I don't know if I'm mid-career, but it's still probably lower than what I will get at some point. But this is a 3x4, and it's around the realm of like 1,000 to 1,200, something like that. By the way, side story. When I met my wife, it was at my very first art show at a bookstore in Buffalo. And I was so in love with her already that on our first date a week later, I showed up on our first date with a 3x4 painting this size. So I broke literally every dating rule in the world. I left her with two options: to marry me or call the police. So those were the two options I left her, and it worked out, I guess. So that's a big painting to show up on your first date, so a rose would have been even weird, but go ahead. Anyone else? I'm an open book, so.
We can ask more questions when we walk over.
Tiffany? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay,
Yeah, so when I first started, that was kind of the field I came out of. I was working at group homes and day programs. And so all my students up until COVID were all adults for the most part. Once in a while, I would have someone who was maybe 16 or 17. But for the most part, they were adults with disabilities who lived at group homes mostly. I worked 90% group homes before COVID. when I started working online, there's such strong networks in social media, you know, with Facebook and stuff for like very specific diagnoses. I have a very strong following of kids with autism who are non-speaking. So that's kind of become like I'm fully like in that world now, which is amazing. Prader-Willi syndrome is another group that I work with. Prader-Willi, it's a syndrome where they don't, they never feel full, so they can literally eat themselves to death if they weren't monitored. And there's usually either a mental illness or an intellectual disability that goes along with it. But so now online, I'm working with tons of kids, and I just launched a kids program here in person, which is an all-inclusive all our programs are actually all-inclusive. So even though I promote it specifically to people with developmental disabilities, anyone could take it. In fact, we invite anyone to take our program. So with this kids program, it's more natural. It seems more natural to have kids with disabilities and without disabilities in the same class. It might seem a little more natural for adults, but I would highly recommend it, to be honest with you. It's fantastic. It's very interesting and it's fun and it's beautiful. So, but with the kids program, all the kids I had, none of them had a developmental disability. But now someone called, now it's already picked up. So a mom called me, and her daughter, who's 10 or 11, does have a developmental disability, and she's really excited to have her be in the same program as other children, not being, you know, segregated. You know, that answer your question? I can't remember what it was now. I'm just saying. Yeah. Good. Okay.
For their child.
Yeah.
That, we don't have any art therapy programs down now.
Okay.
An hour away. So.
Yeah.
Consider talking, or I just want to research what you.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Yeah. Well, what I do have to say is I'm not an art therapist. That's an actual medical term or something or whatever. So there's a degree. Yeah. So just so you're like, if you're talking to parents, it's not art therapy, just so you're aware of that. But yeah, I would love to connect. You could look up our, it's called Indicator Art, indicatorart.org. Yeah, check that out. When we go over in my space, I don't have any promotional material for Indicator Art right now. I'm still kind of living COVID, like where I have a lot of like email stuff and everything, but I finally did get cards for my own. So I can give you or anyone could take my information. So how about the other Ray? Got anything? Okay. Well, thank you. I just knew your name, so that's why I picked it. Yeah, go ahead, Ronnie. Yeah.
Every time I look at it, and I've seen it several times
Yeah.
previous to this, I zone in, it's like, there's clusters in there. I've gone to one cluster.
Yeah.
one point and another, and then how it's all working together.
It's interesting. It's wild. Like sometimes I will paint and come back the next day and not remember what I did and just be like, whoa, this is really wild, you know? So another thing in my process, I got a little pocket mirror that it's a thing that it was my wife's. She's compact. She said, you can use this. You can use this if you don't get any paint on it. I will show you. You can't see anything but paint now, except where my thumb is. There's no paint where my thumb holds it. But I bet you every minute or so I look at my paintings in the mirror to see it again fresh. You know, you'd ever like seeing something with fresh eyes, you know. You could also stand away from it or look at it different ways. Go ahead. Yeah. No, I don't. Yeah. No, go ahead though. Yeah.
It's a mixture between Ashka and
Okay. Oh, you got to write that down for me?
I will.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. And then, well, when you come over to the space, I got a book. I'll help you write in the book. Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm assuming it's a compliment.
Yeah.
Okay. It's my brother-in-law. He's a terrible artist. No, good.
Early 19th,
Okay.
late 18th.
Okay. Yeah.
Very similar.
Well, cool. Thank you. Yeah. I look forward to that. Thank you. Yeah. Awesome. Yes.
So do you always paint with really vivid colors? Is that?
Yeah.
your job.
Yeah, I don't know how not to be honest with you. Yeah. Great.
Your favorite artist?
I'm so detached from the art world. I don't know if I have a favorite artist, to be honest with you. I'm kind of embarrassed to say that I have no, and this, like I said, this was created in a, my process was in a vacuum completely, and I haven't evolved that much beyond that. I mean, I love art, so, but I just don't know. I don't know name like I don't know that name. You know what I mean? That you just told me. Yeah. So,
I have a couple.
okay, yeah. Well, thank you. Go ahead. Yep. Well, it's both. It's both. Yeah. So I do have in-person classes right here at the Casiglia Art Center, and then I do still work online. Yeah. And then I do like have some students in Buffalo that I work online, but they've come to the in-person critique kind of thing. So, yeah. Go ahead.
Is your critique after a series?
Oh,
of
yes,
classes?
yes, that's a good question. I didn't even like really explain so it's a 5-week cycle. We do 4 1-hour I don't know how many like around the world and everything. But since I've only been back since January, so I'm just starting to, get that base back. So yeah. What the problem is, I'm just one person right now, so it's hard to. And there's only I'm trying to balance my family life and my own art career in doing this, and we're trying to grow, doing everything manually. Like I'm like really behind on technology and stuff. And I still have a communication log where I just write down notes and stuff. So I have someone that I'm working with who's kind of an expert at that side of it, and she's totally revamping everything. So eventually, hopefully in 2024, people will just be able to, just come online and sign up and everything. And but I'm really involved in my students in their families' lives. I mean, they include me in a lot of even non-art stuff. So it's just another support that we provide to families. So yes,
So
that's right. Yeah,
have you had students that continue that, like after your course? Like, do they
continue
just
with
like
our
on their art
with our course or beyond our course.
after your course? Like, do they decide to pursue?
Okay, so most of my students. Okay, so most of my students are not capable unless they have support to do that. So that's kind of where the evolution of me finally saying we need to. I have students that want to become professional artists. The disability is not there. In fact, I can make an argument that it's an actual ability during the art process because of things I cited before. But before the art process, after the art process, the disability kind of comes back. So without support from someone who knows what they're doing, their parents don't know, the house manager doesn't know, they can't go too far with it, even though there's a desire on some of my higher functioning students to do that. And the lower functioning students they don't even think this way. You know what I mean? They're not even thinking in that way at all. And that's really beautiful, like to be that pure. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I would like to think myself that pure, and I'm not. You know, I do look at things on how much could I sell this for, and I wish it didn't have to be that way. And so there is a beautiful thing about that. I have a student he's probably like 19 or 20. He's in Mississippi. His name is Jack. He is like, this is his thing now. He takes my program every time. We communicate all the time. And he has sold several paintings through our program, and he just has a taste for it, and he wants this. So I have several students like that. We had a student, I was able to connect a kid's author with one of my students. So she did the artwork for this book. That was kind of cool. So, but it kind of ended there. It was a one-time thing, but she made $500. It's not a lot to make for what she did, but in another way it is. You know, I would have taken the job, to be honest with you, you know. So, anyone else? Go ahead. No, it's kind of, well, because I don't, these aren't really like traditional classes to begin with. So it's not like hey, today we're going to learn how to do a burn, and this is step 1 and step 2, and now you're more advanced to go. I work with everyone. I'm teaching the same process, whether they're 4 years old or whether they're 90 years old, and whatever level of disability or non-disability that they have. So no, the best I wouldn't say the best, but the thing that I can change is providing, when we've had other teachers, if they teach a different way. But what I have found is that teachers that are over-schooled come in and they kind of like, you're out of the way. Let me show you how it's done, and it doesn't go as well. You know what I mean? So there's something about my process that just it was meant to be. It feels like so. I don't know if that answered your question. Go ahead. Yeah. No, I'm into this. I could stay up here all night. So yeah.
So when you do your course, are they also doing like acrylic?
Yes. So I have them, you know, so I'll provide like in person, I provide the canvas and the paint. And it's a little more because it just offset that cost. Online, I provide like a really detailed, you know, thing that they, you know, this kind of paint and everything. But it's also, I say, it's not an exact science. We're doing abstract art. So if you can't find, I mean, you do need primary colors, you do need white. But it's not an exact science. So I do have some panicked moms, like, I don't know what, I can't find Windsor blue. What, you know, it's sort of like, just get any blue, you know what I mean? Don't worry about it, you know? I do like have a phone a friend, you know, where I'll talk to people through it. Okay, it's all right, you know. Tiffany, did you have something?
Really great repetitions. Left your home, right? I mean, you have so many of design and work.
Oh, well, thank you. That's really nice of you to say. One of my milestones earlier on, I got into the Echo Art Fair in Buffalo. Does anyone remember that art fair? I got into it 2 years. I got into 2013, 2016, but 2013 was like, I went from being this just kind of like basement artist to like, you know, being shoulder to shoulder with really established artists. And one of the jurors, who happened to be, he ended up being something, I think he was like the head of like the art department at UB or something. Because the person next to me was like, do you even know who that was? You know, he came in, he looked at my painting, he goes, that's one of the best paintings I've ever seen. He walked away. I just thought he was like a random guy. So the lady was like, I don't know, who was very trained, was like, I don't understand this. It shouldn't work, but it all works. I don't understand. She was kind of frustrated with it. Yeah. And then another milestone was I went to Italy, where my family's from, and we stayed in a house that was like right outside the village, outside of Naples, where my family's from. I happened to bring my portfolio and showed that owner of the house, who we got to know. He's like, my wife's first cousin is a famous artist in Naples. You must see him. He's so your work is very similar. And so I was able to go to his studio. His name is Sorosa. He died during COVID. He was my contact in Italy. I was going to do a show there and everything. But I bought a painting. I left just a 75-year-old, 80-year-old surrealist. I loved it, and gave him my portfolio as a gift, and then he started writing me email after. I mean, just like he emailed me all the time, and my wife, and what she does, actually has, believe it or not, an Italian interpreter for the job that she does, and he was using words like master and things like that, and he was recruiting me to his art movement in Europe called Oltrismo, which I still don't know what it means because there's no like English word for it. So I wasn't sure if it was some kind of radical group that was going to end up on some kind of list and not be able to fly or something. But that was another milestone because I was all of a sudden part of this group. They did newspaper articles on my work over there. I was part of a show over there, so that was another. And one other milestone, right before I moved to LA, I got an award here from the Roycroft, the Mary and Gil Stott Award. Are you guys familiar with that? So that was another thing I'm proud of. So 2017, yeah. It was pretty amazing. So put on the one suit that I have. So any other questions or anything, or you guys, you want to see my studio? That would be great. Yeah, awesome. It's very small, so we're gonna have to kind of go in. We'll kind of go in shifts, I guess. But I am organized only because I need to use space the right way. So it's really hard to a fine line between a gallery and a workspace. You know what I mean? So
I noticed the first
yeah.
thing I noticed was balloons.
I know.
Like cerulean,
I
yeah.
do. Yeah. You know, that's nice. Okay.
Why, I mean.
I have no reasons for anything. That's the thing. But blue is just I don't know. I know.
And relaxing.
Is it
I
okay?
just heard it on the
Maybe.
radio on the way here.
Yeah.
75. That
Is
was the
it?
first thing
Yeah,
I thought
yeah.
of was
Yeah.
And water.
So everything back there is being worked on. What's that?
Is that yours? The print?
Oh, that's a Chagall right there. That's Mark Chagall. Yeah. So no, that's not mine. But no, it's fine. This is all like stuff that's being like worked on. I have a lot of paintings here, but you can look through. These are, those are. This one's pretty much done. But does anyone have any questions? Specific questions about anything? Or yeah, go ahead.
Dark to light, light to dark, or doesn't make a difference?
I don't even know. I just like I'm in a zone.
Whatever.
Yeah, I just get it. After like 2 hours of painting, you kind of just get into it. Yeah, intuitive. Thank you. Yeah. No. And I don't use anything underneath it to get texture. It's just all paint kind of built up. Yeah,